Mm-hmm. It's like when you actually start researching Jack the Ripper, who was happening at the same time. This guy was a fucking for-real monster.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
A very dangerous man.
He looks like if beef jerky wore a top hat, you know?
Well,
he looks so old-timey and like Western Trail and just like, well, I just pull my pants up and I go and milk cows.
He's the evil walrus.
Right. He is.
He does have that mustache, and he's got kind of like a cross-eyed stare. There's only one picture of him. Well, there's two. There's one from when he went to medical school.
There's a few pictures of him.
And when you look at his face, because again, what I love about the 1890s is how whenever they describe someone as handsome, is that they mean they did not take a soft bullet to the face during the Civil War.
Right. Now, you know he's polio-free, so you go marry that man.
What I like about him is that his knees aren't cracked and his back isn't bent.
He's handsome. He's handsome. He's
charming. And again, charming, I think we did it last time. Charming just means, again, in 1890s, that you just yell a lot. You're like, yeah, yes, come with me. Yes, dearest, meet him. Quite a buxom lady, I see. Hop on my knee. How many pairs of goddamn underpants do you have on?
Ooh, he is a charmer.
So research for this episode comes primarily from two sources: The Devil in the White City by Eric Larson, which is required reading not only for those interested in serial killers, but also history in general. It is a fantastic book. For a lot of people, it's one of the only true crime books they've ever read, but it's about H.H. Holmes and also simultaneously about the World's Fair in 1893 in Chicago, which sounds boring, but it's actually fascinating. And the other book is Depraved by Harold Schechter, who is one of the greatest true crime writers that we have. He also wrote Deranged about Albert Fish. He wrote Deviant about Ed Gein. He's got a thing for the D's.
Oh, no. It's just so. I want you to know that H.H. Holmes is really just a symbol of his time. And you wouldn't believe he made fake mineral water. It's just nefarious.
That's how he sounds.
It is exactly how he sounds.
It is how he sounds, but he is a bit of a hero of mine, so please.
I have no one.
All alone and sad. We will be starting the last podcast on the left book club series, and like they used to do in 7th grade with the Pizza Hut situation, if you read a book, you got a free personal pan pizza. If you read these books, Marcus, maybe you send him a bone.
Yeah.
What's the problem? Is that do you feel that what was that program again? That was the
Pizza Hut.
Read It.
Yeah, Read It.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That made us all really fucking fat.
Yeah, it definitely made me like treat food as a reward system.
Yes,
which
it was
probably
like,
wasn't good.
Like we were rats in a lab.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into the world of Mr. Henry Hankey Holmes.
Well, Henry Hankey Holmes, Henry Howard Holmes, original name Herman Webster Mudgett.
Give it a redo. That's what I'm really surprised he didn't go as like, my name is Randall Sexy Chase.
He eventually became better known as H.H. Holmes. He was America's first urban serial killer. We talked about frontier serial killers a while back, but he was the first guy, at least that we know of, that operated within the American urban centers.
And this is back in the day when cities were so new that urban did not just mean like a racist, like, you know, like how to describe a type of pant or a type of hat.
Right.
So operating primarily out of Chicago in the late 1800s, Holmes had a confirmed body count of 9. He confessed to 27 and is estimated to have as many as 200 victims, although that is very much the ceiling.
Well, that's his Henry Lee Lucas number.
Yeah, exactly. Holmes is most famous for his creation of what came to be known simply as the Murder Castle.
Which is a great nickname for your house to have, especially if you're using it to murder people.
Yeah, or a great name for a burger restaurant. The Murder Castle, come on down.
But I feel like Murder Castle, but again, it's like the Heart Attack Cafe.
Right.
You gotta lean on how bad the food is.
Right.
Yep. The Murder Castle was a 3-story block-long building that Henry Howard constructed solely for the purpose of attracting, trapping, and killing young women.
Don't forget drifters. He did get some drifters. And most of this information we know about H.H. Holmes because he was a complete pathological liar. Nothing he said was real. Everything was a con. This guy was an incredible villain. Like, you'd literally call him a villain. Like, he's bigger than a Dahmer. I was ranting about this in my apartment last night to my girlfriend. She's looking at me like I was a crazy person as I was yelling again about how he's the Joker. Yeah. That's my view. But Marcus has his own.
He's the Joker if the Joker got into real estate.
Yes, yes.
I would love to hear the Yelp reviews, by the way, if this hotel existed today. You know?
So much for being called the Myrtle Castle. I arrived home completely safe. 2 stars.
So little is known about the childhood of Herman Webster Mudgett. We know that he was the youngest of 3, the son of a farmer named Levi and a housewife named Theodate. Or is it Theodate?
Who gives a shit? It's the worst name for a woman I've ever heard.
Yeah, Theodate.
Yeah, her name might have been like Gaper.
Gaper isn't so bad.
I don't think so. I think name's Gaper Sundry.
Well, I will say I'm going on 1 date at least.
Yeah. Oh, man, where's my stool? Oh, there it is. It's up inside me.
Interesting.
Gaper Sundry or Theodate Mudgett? Which one are you going with?
Either way, they could sit on a bowling ball and you'd be like, where's my bowling ball?
Yeah, it's amazing what you can.
Well, they were good people, Henry. They were devout Methodists.
Devout religious people are the best people that have ever been.
Oh, yes.
Because, like Osama bin Laden.
Right, yeah, no, religion doesn't ruin everything. No.
Well, Holmes was beat regularly as a punishment and was often locked in the attic. But even though he described himself as a, quote, mother's boy.
I'm a mother's boy.
Self-described mother's boy.
Self-described mother's boy, yes. He also would fantasize about his parents' death, particularly when he heard about the Great Chicago Fire. He said that he would sit there and imagine them burning alive until their bones were nothing but ash.
But don't get me wrong, I love them.
Right, and I do want to say, there was that great Green Day song off the Kerplunk album, I believe, where all they did was discuss killing their mothers and their father. If you do want to kill your parents, it's sort of a normal fantasy to have because technically they are keeping you in prison in a situation you don't want to be in.
Yes, you are a little slave. You are an owned person when you are a child. But when it comes down to it, they took you into this world, they could take you out.
Right.
And that's a Bill Cosby thing. And he was a rapist.
The story that H.H. relayed most about his childhood was of a day in which some older neighborhood boys, knowing Holmes was terrified, or Holmes said of the local doctor's office, they forced him inside. Now, doctor's offices, this is important to remember, they, at this time period, were particularly horrifying places.
Well, all science was horrifying at the time. This is the time where it's like, I could put on a coat and be like, I could be a doctor, and like walk in the thing. Well, he's got small enough hands to reach inside a woman's cavity. Oh, he's definitely a doctor. You could tell.
Yeah, you would just like walk in and be like, I think I have a bit of a cough, and then the doctor would be like, bring in the leeches, and then the whole thing would just turn into you.
But that's like an old school. Then another doctor would be like, leeches. That is a wave of the past. Let us use the snakes. The snakes are much larger, and they get their mouths more around the buttock.
And then some dude's like, well, let's replace his blood with mayonnaise. See if that works.
Ah, yes. My sandwiches taste delicious with mayonnaise. I imagine it could only make the soul more lubricated.
Well, you're really not that far off. And modern medical science was just beginning. They were starting to get out of, the belief in humors, and phrenology was still kind of a thing at the time, but we were starting to transition into modern medical science. And that's another thing that's important to remember about this time is that this was a time of transition in America.
And it was a rough transition.
It was a very rough transition.
Because the idea is it was going from like frontier America to America we know now. It's literally that big of a jump. It's like fucking going from the
free
first
internet, post-internet.
Yeah, it's a big switch.
Yeah.
And it was a hard one switch, and a lot of people died of the flu in a bad way, in a way that they were like, we could cut off his feet and we'll scare the flu out of the top of his head, thinking that we're going to come after the head next. You know what I mean? Like no, and then people started getting better.
Yeah, exactly. And it was also post-Civil War. There was a lot of stuff going on in America at the time, so that's important to remember during all of this shit. But what what doctors would have in their offices at this time is they would have fresh corpses in the back that they would use for dissection, because they were really starting to figure out that if you wanted to cure the human body, it was a good idea to know what the human body actually did and how it was put together.
Also, it's fun to hide the skeleton in your wife's bed and be like, I'm in here, darling, come see, I've just been done brushing my mustache. And she comes in, oh, Howard, you got me again. And then you rape her. Because, again, it's the 1890s and the sex was very misunderstood.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But of course, it was pretty controversial to work on bodies before this, right?
It was controversial during this time as well.
Yeah.
Of course, there were some medical schools that would actually hire local hooligans to raid the local graveyards, dig up corpses, and bring them back.
We're also going to learn more when he goes to medical school. It's true. They thought it was to desecrate a corpse to do an autopsy.
Yeah.
But then they decided the best way for science to move forward is to playfully hack at corpses and see what their guts look like.
Right.
And that's like what they did. I mean, technically it's science because they needed to know what the guts look like. But every once in a while, you got a guy who gets to the medical school who really wanted to see what the guts look like.
A little bit too much.
Yeah.
Too much.
Yeah, so these doctors' offices, they also had a lot of them had these actual beautiful skeletons hanging in their offices. Like they were
You would only.
No, they are beautiful. No,
It's just skeletons.
I don't know. Yeah, I can't tell one skeleton apart from another skeleton.
Do you know
Is that how you flirted with Carly when you first met her? I can tell you have a beautiful skeleton.
I am, yeah.
It's mostly how a skeleton looks after it's outside of the body and how well it's put together.
Just describe your perfect skeleton. I have to know now.
What's your favorite kind of skeleton?
It's not that the best kind of skeleton is the one that looks exactly like it would look if it was still covered in muscle and cartilage and blood.
You're just talking about a skeleton.
I'm talking about a skeleton, but once you remove all of the muscle and the blood,
You're just talking
and
about a
all the-
regular
I
ass
just
skeleton.
feel like, yeah, but
Your
outside
skeleton's-
of a body.
You're skeleton shaming, you know? And I can't wait. Again, I think we've talked about this before. I'm going to be a terrifying skeleton, and I hope I'm in a middle school.
No, it would be so good. You with your arms outstretched and like a pirate hat on top
Yeah.
of you.
It'll be big.
So what these kids did to little H.H. Holmes is that, of course, he said that he was very terrified of the skeleton inside.
He said that he found the pharmacy that they went to be the most abhorrent place he's ever seen.
Yes.
Which I also, again, think is the sound of a boner rising. Like, truly, I feel like that was the thing. He was more, like, morbidly fascinated with the pharmacy and never wanted to go. He knew something terrible was going to happen as if he ever, like, really got close to that skeleton.
Yeah, exactly.
So he just did what Del Close, the founder of improv, told us all to do: follow the fear.
yes, he did.
And so they dragged him.
Yeah,
Right?
they dragged him inside, and they dragged him inside, kicking and screaming, and they put him right in front of the skeleton. Look at it, and he opened his eyes, and he said that suddenly all of his fear fell away, and that is when he first gained the curiosity of the human body, and that was what first spurred him to medical school.
So most of what we know about H.H. Holmes comes from his writing.
as far as his
right?
childhood goes, yes,
and his confessions and stuff like that. Now,
So how much can we take literally? How true is it, do you think?
well, I think there's a lot of it that's true, and but I think with stuff like this is when we talk about, because we talk about Jeffrey Dahmer, right? Jeffrey Dahmer began to realize he was having fantasies about men being asleep, right? And that turned into when he would visualize the jogger that he would watch every day who ran past his house. You imagine him lying down in bed completely asleep. I think H.H. Holmes, in a little bit, was so fascinated, probably had seen that skeleton walking down the street several times. He was also known as, he was like the smartest kid in class. That was the thing, is that he was this very, 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 like, bright kid, very ambitious, and everyone was very jealous of him. I think there was a part of that's what he said. They said they were jealous of him, which is why they did this prank to him in the pharmacy. But I think you can see the inkling of he knew that once that he liked it. I think he knew that he liked it. I think that he was afraid to say what it was because everyone else found skeletons to be incredibly creepy, but he kept being like, but I want to dance with it in the moonlight. You know, and they're like, that's a weird reaction. It's like, I hate that you was just like, we asked, what's 5 + 3? Fucking Herbert. I want to dance with the skeletons, and hopefully they come to life.
And so, so the practical joke totally backfired, and it turned out that he loved the skeletons. Very similar to when parents want to not have their children children smoke cigarettes, and they have him smoke a pack of cigarettes, and then the next day the kid becomes a truck driver and can't get enough of Pall Malls.
So by 11, of course, this is when a switch just turned. By 11, he's dissecting live animals. He's keeping them alive for as long as he can during the experiments. He has a little tiny treasure box that he kept in his family's cellar. It's filled with keepsakes of his killings. You have various skulls. You have cat's paws. But he said he also had in there a picture of his 12-year-old sweetheart.
Interesting. And it's all, again, very similar to Dahmer in this respect. And also, this was viewed as a healthy interest in science at the time. Now we know is one of the top 3 signs that your child is a serial killer.
Right.
So he did briefly have one friend growing up, a little boy named Tom. Unfortunately, Tom died tragically in a fall while the boys were playing together in an abandoned house. And whether Holmes had a hand in his death or not, we'll never know. But there were suspicions.
But he definitely did say, he said that when Tom died, they asked him if he was sad because they knew it was his only friend. And he was like, I'd rather be alone.
Yeah.
So
Jesus.
maybe he made himself alone. And that's a really great way to, if you're feeling single and you want to love being single, make yourself be alone.
Love it. Yeah, just embrace it. Yeah.
He must have been a scary, intense little boy.
Yes. A terrifying little boy.
Because he had the view, because you could see probably the reflections in his eyes of the 3-story fucking Liberanthian murder hotel he was already thinking about. And this is what they said, that these fantasies about killing people in a mass way in a started as a child.
Really?
Yes. He had been the murder castle, the castle. It started as just the castle, was a seed planted very, very early because of the writings of Andrew Carnegie. And he would read all of these things about succeeding in modern America. And he was like, I'm going to be a titan of real estate. And then meanwhile, he's just like, and then I could make a skeleton farm just for old Herbert.
Well, we should have. I'm sure, after he said that, they were like, "Yeah, absolutely, you should do it." And then he continued talking. They're like, "Oh, we've just encouraged a serial killer." Okay, great.
So Holmes graduated high school at 16, became a teacher, and at the age of 18, met and married his first wife, Clara Lovering. Wouldn't stick around for long, soon left Clara for medical school, and she would be largely forgotten.
She should thank her goddamn lucky star she was largely forgotten, or she would have ended up in a goddamn college as a teaching tool.
So he was drawn first to the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, which was known at the time as the leading medical school in the art of the dissection of human corpses. And this, according to Holmes, was where his career as a criminal truly began. Now, an important thing to remember about Holmes was the diversity of his crimes. While a lot of serial killers, they like to commit a lot of their non-murderous crimes, such as arson, theft, breaking and entering, etc., in their youth, Holmes was a career criminal.
Well, he was highly ambitious.
Yes.
And there was one of the killer profilers on the Netflix documentary H.H. Holmes is very, very good. He was basically describing what makes H.H. Holmes incredibly unique in the area of any serial killer is that he graduated college. Is that he had ambitions. He had this sort of go get him. He wanted to be a millionaire. He wanted to be one of these self-made American success stories. And technically he was in terms of notoriety, but if something had come along and saved him, he could have I don't know. Maybe he was never going to be saved.
Isn't that a situation where, yes, he did graduate college, but this is the closest thing to the major that he would want to choose?
Yes, he majored in hacking up bodies.
Yeah, Jeffrey Dahmer was like, University of Michigan, do you guys have a Thai boy fuck class? Oh, you do not. You do not have a, okay. How about
no.
making a human zombies course? Do you have that?
Tell you, young Jeff, what we do have is a cafeteria open late, and I got to tell you what, they're serving spring rolls until 5 o'clock in the morning, if you get me. Wink, 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 wink. I mean, that's where you could fuck a boy.
I think I'm going to go see if the chocolate factory's hiring.
Man,
Too creepy for you? Well, I guess that's what happens when you come to old serial killer university.
So while Holmes was, as we'll see later, an accomplished bigamist, his favorite crime was fraud, which he was able to easily accomplish through a combination of a charming demeanor and dashing good looks.
Well, he just wasn't heinously ugly.
He was 5'8", 155, dark hair, blue eyes, a little bit shorter than me. Actually, Henry, around your size.
Yeah, I'm H.H. Holmes size.
Yeah.
I'm Tom Cruise size.
Yeah.
He's a movie star size.
Yeah,
Like me,
exactly.
a movie star.
Well, TV star.
Yes. Well, TV
Supporting
supporting character.
So physician John L. Capon said about his eyes,
They are blue. Great murderers, like great men in other walks of activity, have blue eyes.
and he remarked on Holmes' ears.
He had Biden ears.
He had pointy ears.
And this makes okay. I see.
He had ears that indicated devilry and vice.
Yeah, Dick Cheney had to have his clipped
Oh,
in
like a
order to
pit
run
bull.
for vice president.
See, Holmes was also a fantastic ladies' man. He was somehow able to find this middle ground between proper and scandalous behavior. He'd stare too long, touch a little bit too much, stand a little bit too close. Had he not been an attractive man, he would have been seen as just a complete and total creep.
He literally would just run his hands up and down women's arms and stuff like that. But they were so
Yeah.
taken aback because number one, when you'll see later on, is that when this dashing man from out of town shows up and he looks and dresses like he's a millionaire and acts like he's a millionaire, and it's just nothing but farmers' daughters who are ready to be taken away. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they would just meet all these. This is at a time when women meant nothing unless they were married. So they would kind of walk around, and when you have a guy in a fancy bowler hat come and touch your arm, even though like he's a little grabby. But he's willing to be your husband and maybe take care of you. You just jump right on the opportunity.
And you never know. Maybe he's Vice President Joe Biden. You
know,
never know.
Joe Biden
Just-
had the
just giving
same-
you the rub.
When he was like doing that weird like mouth whisper into that little girl's ear.
Oh yeah, he is very uncomfortable. A lot of sociopaths don't understand human touch and what makes people what's appropriate and what's not.
I'll put it this way out there, guys. If you want to flirt with a woman, and you think, I mean, a lot of what you want to do is like in a bar, right? It's like you want to do the thing where you lean in close and you like talk in her ear because it's light out there and you can get close to her. If your teeth touch her earlobe, you're not doing good.
No. She's not gonna love it.
Well, speaking of Joe Biden and politicians, I think that H.H. Holmes had all the hallmarks of a successful politician. And in fact, the way people described H.H. Holmes and his demeanor is eerily similar to how people described Bill Clinton.
Because they said Bill Clinton had what they called a cone of attention, that he can do this thing where he makes you feel like you're the only person in the room, which is what all politicians are. They're all pedophiles and murderers. Anybody who wants to be president has watched a boy suck off another senator, and he was just like, well, you'll get your pipeline. Like he'll say, and he'll sign a contract like while it's happening. Not even thinking about the boy sucking
Yeah,
off
that's
the
why
senator.
Keystone failed, Ben, because Barack Obama
He would-
refused to see a little boy get sucked off by an old man.
Makes all the sense in the world. And
You're
if that,
blaming the EPA.
if that's the case, then I'm all for it. Keeping it out. No Keystone Pipeline if it requires a child to suck off an adult in front of the sitting president of the United States of America.
And I think that's generous, Ben.
No problem.
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
I'm happy that you released that to us.
I'm rational. I will change.
But I don't think he smelled like Clinton. But I would also say,
What do you mean you don't think he smelled? What did Clinton smell like?
Probably smelled like sweet perfumes and the light waft of
Yeah.
McDonald's fries.
Not motor oil and sardines.
Yeah,
Everyone just smelled like grease and things like that.
That's all I could think about when I was looking at all the pictures of H.H. Holmes, like the class he graduated with medical school, and I just imagine like crotch smell.
Oh yeah,
You know, just like them washing themselves with powders and then every once in a while going to a stream and slapping some water in their pits.
right. Doing the old Irish shower, which is when you just dump a bunch of whiskey on your head.
Just covered in juices from hacked up corpses all day. And that's how you knew a scientist was because he reeked of death.
Oh yeah, butchers have such an odor to them when they come home. Imagine what this must smell like.
Well, speaking of medical school, back to H.H. Holmes' time there, with so many corpses at hand, Holmes was struck with the idea of the scam that would eventually cause his whole life to unravel years later. The plan that he hatched with a fellow student who was Canadian.
Fucking that means he's a liar and a thief. Corpse fucker.
It's very possible.
The plan was to take out life insurance policies on each other, steal a cadaver from the school, and then fake the death of the other one, then collect the money and split it.
Oh, God. You know, it's just a weird plan to describe to somebody to come up and be like, I've got a great idea. And he's just like, so we've got to handle the corpses there? That's what you're saying? We got to literally go and get the corpses from the basement, and we got to take them out and bring them to the mail?
And burn them!
Yeah. It's a great plan, though. Very
Well,
few
all
people
right.
have that much access to corpses, so I guess they just utilize the goods around
Can
them.
you imagine fucking, like, watching Jeffrey Dahmer run around those corpse rooms just going in like,
God.
today is the day I smile, today is the day I dance. It's just going around just sucking off corpses left and right. And be like, and I'll see you tomorrow, Jimmy, and I'll see you tomorrow, Tommy.
You wonder if, Dahmer would have never built a house of horrors. I don't think he had the mental capabilities.
He
He
did build a house of horrors.
It was an
but
apartment in the
It
middle of...
was a condo of horrors. But he did, but think about it. I mean, he would have been a doctor.
I think that Dahmer would have just been happy with the job.
Yeah.
He would have been a doctor.
I mean-
he would have been he would have been
bad
a Dr. Huxtable. Is what he would have been.
Slightly worse than the doctor who wants to replace blood with mayonnaise. He'd be like, we drilled the hole. We drilled the hole in your head. This will totally get rid of
think
your
about
cough.
it. Okay, think about it this way: like H.H. Holmes is more of a Bob Dylan, while Jeffrey Dahmer is more of a Daniel Johnston. Accomplished versus a trained accomplished artist versus more of an outsider artist.
Well, a
Because
person-
Jeffrey Dahmer's altar very ramshackle, very haphazard. But H.H. Holmes, a beautifully constructed, well-oiled machine.
But it also quickly fell to decay because he was not. What we're going to learn is that he strung that whole hotel together by bad loans and basically getting money from creditors and not paying them back, which is what I did to become an actor.
Perfect.
But I would also equate H.H. Holmes to Charles Manson, just in terms of being like he is the dark image of his time.
Yeah, because America at this time was a very transient country. So the idea of stealing a corpse, taking out a life insurance policy on one of your friends, and then saying, hey, my friend died, and then collecting the insurance money on it, it's not the worst idea in the world because you can just change your name at any time.
And also, what's very interesting with that is that I think there's also a trust in America that was happening at the time. This is what they were talking about. It was like when he was doing the hotel killings, Jack the Ripper was also happening at the same time. And America, the attitude was like, well, at least we'll never have a Jack the Ripper. They never assumed that someone would use corpses to scam somebody because it was this thing that people were really superstitious about like doing anything bad to the dead. And so he using corpses as a scam was just like, again, Dylan going electric.
And to your point about Manson as well, Manson was a mirror of the counterculture, and so he was able to fly under the radar a little bit. No one could even believe that hippies could do such horrific things. This was the time of the industrial boom. McKinley was about to be elected by the Rockefellers and all that.
He was being an evil square. He was kind of being like Ted Bundy too, where he was like he was an evil like college Republican.
People would never believe a guy with a top hat would do anything wrong, though.
Yeah,
They'd just say, he's a businessman. He's got to be good.
H.H. Holmes was the man that every other man in America aspired to be.
Right.
The can-do attitude, the bootstrap attitude, that I'm going to be, my place is at the top, is what he used to always believe, because he was, of course, as Henry said, a big Andrew Carnegie fan. But what Holmes, as far as the insurance fraud, he looked at the mistakes of the ones who got caught. He knew from being in medical school that if a body was badly burned or decomposed, there was no real identifying the corpse. You just had to sort of take whoever found the body at their word that, like, yes, this is Herman Webster Mudgett. Because the names could be changed. Overnight, Herman Webster Mudgett could become H.H. Holmes. And any new person that that met you, they had to take on faith that you were who you said you were. Unless there was someone chasing you, or unless there was someone else there who's like, no, his name is not Herman Webster, his name is Henry Howard.
My name is Martin von Spider-Man. I was bitten by a respectfully medicated spider. Now I can climb walls, and I am married to the great redhead Mary Parker. I make love to her. I'm from Queens, New York.
And again, there was like very little photographs of anybody at this time. No, you couldn't just be like, well, you don't look anything like your Facebook profile. I don't think so.
Yeah, exactly. And there was no, like, cross-referencing was unheard of unless you were a part of, say, like the Pinkerton Detective Agency.
Yeah, and Tinder was just grabbing a woman out of a carriage.
Isn't that something?
Just
Swipe
screaming, "Hey!"
Well, he is a charmer, though. I'm just going to go with him.
Yes, that's the people, they call it the Gilded Age, the age of excess, or the age of screaming.
The age of screaming to make your point. Yes! You are my wife now! No, thank you, somebody come. Oh, look, he only barely smells of fish.
Now, one could argue that H.H. Holmes was among the most well-rounded psychopaths of modern history. He had all the charm of the best politicians democracy had to offer. He had the cunning and shrewdness of the most successful businessmen and the complete indifference to human life of the 20th century's greatest dictators.
He was kind of like the Patrick Ewing of serial killers, right? Would you say?
Well, H.H. Holmes is a winner. Don't even get me started on the Knicks, please. We can't talk about that.
Yeah, and I would say he's more of a Michael Jordan, because although he was wonderful at basketball, not that great at baseball, but still good enough to play in the major leagues.
And a sociopath.
And a complete and total sociopath.
No, he was a winner.
That's
difference.
right. Go watch the Michael Jordan Hall of Fame speech. I actually find it to be very inspirational. Some people don't like it.
I love it. I love
like it
exactly what he is a fucking... Yes, he was a jerk-off, but guess what? You don't become number one without leaving some footprints on the heads of those below you.
That's correct.
Michael Jordan is a textbook psychopath.
Right.
Yes.
Good guy.
Good basketball player. Good basketball player.
Yeah, great basketball player.
Non-crumple shirts.
Oh, great
They don't
shirts.
bacon. The shirts don't bacon.
Isn't that great?
So this, as I said, the age of excess, Mark Twain put it, the Gilded Age. H.H. Holmes was what all men aspired to. You could compare the type of man that people wanted to be at this time to the type of men that people wanted to be in the 80s. The Gordon Geckos. Greed is good. Like, being a psychopath, being a sociopath at that point in time was seen as something that you should aspire to.
Like
Damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead. Doesn't matter what we leave in our wake. Doesn't matter the destruction we leave behind us. All that matters is that I get mine.
Capitalism was the perfect political ideology at this point.
But the idea was it was the ideal man. It was the idea. It was the American hope that you could go from being a fishmonger in the streets of Boston to being like fucking Andrew Carnegie.
Totally.
And that's the kind of attitude you needed.
Yeah, because this is also the time when American dynasties were first really starting to be formed. Like when your Carnegies, your Rockefellers, like the celebrity, like the first celebrities of America, a lot of them were businessmen. Mm-hmm. Like this is when like the culture of celebrity kind of began in America.
Yeah, and they weren't like the Kardashians where they kept their ass sex stuff privately in their basements with their slaves.
That's right. This is where the oligarchy begins.
Yeah. So, but H.H. Holmes, of course, when he heard Andrew Carnegie say, "My place is at the top," he thought, "My place is at the top of murder, mayhem, destruction."
Or I think a part of it is that I think he genuinely thought that he was going to become a millionaire. I think that he was going to become a millionaire by doing everything that he was doing. I think a lot of his stuff was money based because he was taught that it was a social thing. It was like it showed that you were in charge of the room if you were the richest man in the room. But I think he just kept killing people.
Yeah. Yeah. He just kept killing people. And when there was somebody in his way, he killed them, essentially.
But then he would double kill them. He would do them real fast. He would just but then I think the murder hotel just became too much for him.
It was a real money pit. If you've ever seen that great Tom Hanks movie, it's very similar.
It's like the movie Money Pit.
Yeah.
You remember when the fountain, the little boy pees on him when he wakes him up?
Yeah, and then they lock him in the room and turn on the gas.
That's where it changes into the H.H. Holmes house.
Oh, I see.
So H.H. Holmes, he graduates medical school. He gets a job in Philadelphia at a pharmacy. accidentally poisoned a woman with one of his concoctions.
Can we say it was on purpose?
We can say it was quote-unquote accidental.
We
How's
can
about
definitely
that?
say he was faking being a pharmacist, and that's the truth. Is he doesn't know how to make fucking medicines.
Right.
Yeah, he was faking that, definitely. But he faked it good enough. After he left Philadelphia, he arrived in Chicago that he had gone to years earlier. Like, he had traveled to Chicago while he was in medical school, because he said his first criminal enterprise was selling books door to door. Like, he would give them a copy, like he would show them a copy of the book and say, like, yes, if you give me this copy, if you give me money, when I get back to Michigan, I will send you through the Pony Express your very own copy of this book.
That is the Nigerian prince scam.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's so true.
and then he just kept all the money.
Yeah.
And of course all these people are idiots because
Well,
they also trusted him because he was just so like it was amazing how much he could get people to instantly trust him.
He was guileless.
Yeah.
That was the idea, is that he had his confidence. And when he said, you just trusted him because he was just saying these things. And he was like, they also say he's real fast, real brusque.
Mm-hmm.
He would come and be like, I don't really, I'll give you thank you for the money. And I will definitely, I will be sending it. Oh, you'll see, not 2 nightshades from now. All right, goodbye. And then like out the door.
Yeah, and then you'd leave thinking that he was your best friend in the world.
Right.
Like, you'd come in pissed off, and you'd leave him slapping you on the back, telling you a joke. Like, boy, that Henry Howard, do I love him.
Right. Yeah.
I will say that shit ended for him, though.
Yeah,
and we'll get to that.
Yeah, that shit did end. Charm only takes you so far. So he leaves Philadelphia, Herman Webster Mudgett, and he arrives in Chicago in 1886 as H.H. Holmes. Now, this description of Chicago that I'm about to give, this is all from, Eric Larson's description in Devil in the White City, which really I cannot recommend enough. So, at the end of the 19th century, Chicago it was a boom town. The city had bounced back completely from the Great Fire of 1871. Because in 1871, the reason why Chicago went up so fast is because it was just all wooden buildings.
And they just slapped fake stone exteriors on all of them. And
Yeah.
so as soon as the fire happened, which they believe was started by a cow, but they actually probably was started by a bunch of kids who were starting fires.
Yeah, it was probably a bunch of teenage psychopaths.
Yeah, and it was a tinder box. They could describe Chicago as a tinder box, and it just burst into flames. I had no idea how big that disaster was.
Yeah.
Until I read Depraved, and it was like the idea. It's like it just the one fire and it just went like, and like the whole city went up.
Yeah.
It was the best thing that ever happened to Chicago, though, right?
It actually was.
Yeah, besides the deep dish.
Oh, don't even get me started. Yes.
Because with all of this other land out of the way, with all these old buildings out of the way, Chicago could kind of start from scratch. And Chicago became the birthplace of the skyscraper. The first modern buildings built anywhere really in the world were built in Chicago because it had the infrastructure of a settled area. It had everything was good to go, but it also had the land and the people already there.
Yeah, it's
to
kinda
just
like-
sprout everything up.
What should be happening in Detroit, but instead they're just letting packs of roving dogs be mayor.
Yeah, maybe in Baltimore. Maybe that CVS will turn into a murder castle of its own.
And of course, with progress came people. Every day, thousands of trains were in and out of Chicago, carrying thousands of people. And on every single one of these trains rode single young women who had never left home before, for this was, in America, the infancy of female independence.
And what they would do with these trains, if they had they'd have special like single women trains, and they would do is that in the front of the train they put 2 big inflatable balloons and then a big fake brassiere over it. So that's how you knew it was rolling into town.
And then there was a Joe Francis type who wheeled in a huge video camera. He was just like, go a little crazy.
Yeah.
Girls go a little crazy.
Yes, doing the thing where there goes like, poof, and the fuse explodes, and they do the thing where it takes 45 minutes for them to take booby selfies.
So this, like I said, the infancy of female independence, this was the first time in America that women had ever struck out on their own. Because, you had the advent of the railroad network in America, so getting from place to place was actually fairly simple. For the very first time, if a woman had the money and the gumption, she could go anywhere she wanted to. And Chicago was the center of the Midwest. So every young woman woman who wanted to strike out on her own, every young woman who wanted to have an adventure before she got married, all went to Chicago.
Yeah, now they just go get big there. That's what most people do. You know, Chicago is a lovely town because when I go to Chicago, I feel like a supermodel.
Yeah.
I will say people are beautiful. There are beautiful women and really good-looking dudes out there. Chicago's a good, strong city, but they can get stout.
Yep. They just totally missed out. They should have gone to Pewaukee, Wisconsin. That was a hip town back then.
And for these girls, there were jobs waiting for them. Typewriters, stenographers, seamstresses, weavers. These women could actually go there. They could live on their own. They could get paid a living wage. Because, of course, before this, women didn't have jobs outside of just farm woman. You know,
Farm
And she's
woman.
not allowed to do any of the work. She just stands next to the farm. I make sure the pigs are pink.
But despite Chicago being the urban center of the Midwest, bit of a hellhole. Garbage piled high in alleyways, billions of flies swarm the streets. The corpses of dogs, cats, and horses rotted in the streets in the same place where they died. The corpses froze in the winter, bloated and burst in the summer.
Ah, the city.
Love that city.
And the smell of Chicago. See, meat was a big business in Chicago at the time.
yeah.
The area around the Union stockyards, they said it smelled like decomposing bodies, burnt hair, and cow shit.
Don't get me hungry.
Yeah, that is great.
Yep. Famous muckraker and critic of the American meat industry, Upton Sinclair, who you all remember from junior year of high school, The Jungle?
The jungle.
The Jungle.
Because
You
he wrote
remember
about
that.
how, like, meat is all gross there.
It had people in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Meat, people in the meat. He said that the odor of Chicago had...
An elemental odor, raw and crude. It was rich, almost rancid, sensual and strong. I don't know why I made him sound like that.
Yeah, I
I
liked
think
it,
it's
though.
because his name is Upton.
Yeah, that sounds like an Upton to me.
Yeah,
That's good.
He was a muckraker.
I was a sick boy. I lived in a wheelchair to the age of 9, and all I asked my father was to let me roll through the garden. I just wanted to see the tulips spring forth in the earlier parts of the year, but my croup kept me from the strong elemental winds and the pollens and the bees, and also my weak feet and the horrid meat I would see coming from the kitchen to the living room. How I loathed it.
God, I kind of want it for like an alarm clock or something. I like
Yeah,
that.
just the horrid meat over it. Could you say that like 5 times?
Horrid meat. Horrid meat.
Oh, God damn. Oh, what time is it?
Horrid
Oh, shit, I'm late to work. I'm
Horrid meat.
God damn it. Where are my pants?
So death came easily and often in Chicago, not just to animals, but also to humans. Every day, an average of 2 people were killed by trains. Streetcars fell on pedestrians from drawbridges.
I think 2 people killed it. What are they, sleeping there? How do you get 2 people a day killed by trains?
I am one to believe that all trains are phantoms, and I will show you scientifically, Reginald. Ha ha! Ah, I dare this train to dare cross through me. I want to feel its ectoplasm.
Yep. Well, you gotta learn, so you check it off.
I challenge you, train, to do. Ha ha! Ah, as fake as a cloud, as fake as the moon.
You don't accidentally do it? Okay. We've lost our 5th scientist this week. We can officially announce trains are not phantoms.
No, not only was the trains, horses got spooked and trampled through crowds, and fires killed dozens of people a day.
And women went there to go on vacation.
Yeah, this is a hot spot. This is like Miami.
Murder, widespread, for the most part unpunished because the police force hadn't even come close to growing along with the population. Chicago, in 1892, it saw almost 1,600 murders, and those are just the ones that we know about.
So they didn't have the government structure put in place. They didn't have sanitation. They didn't have any. They had no. I mean, what? This is a 20-year change after the fire.
Municipal government wasn't really a thing yet.
Yes, they were literally, everything was private industries. You know what I mean? Like waste
Yeah.
companies were private industries.
Yeah.
Like everything, capitalism was at its height.
Yeah. Actually, like firemen, you had to pay firemen to come. come.
And they do that to this day as well.
I mean, but they technically, are they not legally compelled to come fight fires?
The firemen, yeah. If you call
there was a
911 and
no.
tell them if there's a fire, they have to come.
There was a story 2 years ago. I forget what county it was. The firemen stared at the fire and let it burn because the people who lived in that home did not pay the fee they have to pay to have fire service.
Oh,
That's
was like
illegal.
that's in Mumbai.
No, that's here in grand old United States of America.
I think that's illegal.
We'll talk about it later.
Yeah, I want to arrest the fireman now too, and I'm going to go down to downtown New York in the financial district, and I'm going to civilian arrest a firefighter.
It's gonna go great.
Yes. So so murder was just something that happened that nobody really even gave a fuck about. Of course, they gave a fuck,
Right.
but no, there wasn't really many detectives around in Chicago at the time. And Chicago was also compared to, say, New York and Philadelphia, still a fairly new city. It didn't have the jump start that those other cities had. It was still trying to find its identity. So author and publisher Paul Lindo described Chicago as, quote, a gigantic peep show of utter horrors, while others simply just called it satanic.
They just, again, didn't believe in trains.
Yeah, I guess so.
And despite this, Chicago, against all odds, was chosen as the site of the 1893 World's Fair.
Yes.
It's like when they gave the Russians the Olympics.
Actually, it's exactly like when they gave
Brilliant
the Russians the
idea.
Olympics.
They just gave it to the dark horse, man. You give it to the up-and-comers.
Well,
It's
no,
like
really,
our Mets.
the dark horse was St. Louis.
Well, St. Louis is... I don't even know. It's a dead horse. I don't call it a dark horse. St. Louis sucks.
It's a scam anyway. We should never want the Olympics. It's a huge waste of money.
It's a gigantic waste of money.
And I hate having all these javelin throwers everywhere stealing our women.
and it's dangerous walking down the streets. You never know when they're practicing.
See, America, the reason why we wanted to make such a huge showing is because in the 1889 World's Fair, the Eiffel Tower had been unveiled in Paris.
That's a big one, though.
That was a
that
big
was a
one.
big get.
That was a huge get. That was Paris's big fuck you to the world. Is that, hey, we're Paris, we're here. Look at this gigantic cock we're going to put right in the middle of our city.
entire world, and you will go to all these steps at the Eiffel Tower. We reek of spit wine and cement bestsellers.
You know your tower's totally useless, right? You just got to go up there and look at your city. I mean, it doesn't really serve a purpose.
Ooey.
So, America at the Paris World's Fair had given what you would call it a dismal showing. We had a couple of exhibits here and there. Best thing we did was Buffalo Bill's Wild West show.
And that was just showing how good we are at killing Native Americans.
Kinda.
Well, we were really good at it.
This is in Chicago, this Wild
No,
Bill?
this was in Paris.
This was Paris.
Of course, Buffalo Bill's Wild West show did also have quite a big showing at the World's Fair in Chicago. But America, it was our turn to shine because the 400th anniversary of Christopher Columbus's discovery of America was coming up. And with 4 years until the exhibition was to open, the vote for the location of the fair came down to New York, Chicago, and St. Louis. And when St. Louis gave up and shifted its votes to New York City, one Chicagoan exclaimed,
Gentlemen, I am prepared to state that any person from St. Louis would rob a church.
and another man shouted,
or poison his wife's dog.
Man, that's a fun conference.
That is fun. Conferences and government stuff was way better back in the
Yeah.
day.
They
Because you
eat-
can yell stuff about wives' pies and poisoning dogs.
They eat soup through their nose.
That's the best. The worst way to eat soup because you smell it before you taste it.
Yes.
The deviants.
But Chicago would win out in the end, and so the Columbian Exposition was slated to be held in Chicago 4 years later in 1893, and that would mean that literally millions of people would be traveling in and out of the city from March until October of that year. It was the perfect time for H.H. Holmes, almost as if Chicago at this time and place had been made just for him.
It's almost like Lucille Ball in that classic scene where she has too much chocolate coming down the conveyor belt. He's like, all these people coming. Oh my goodness, I can't kill them all so quickly.
But it's more like it's a chicken and the egg type thing. It's something like H.H. Holmes was going to happen eventually. Because see, again, if you have one mirror image, like again, we want to go with Manson. In the 60s, you have the free love movement. You have accepting each other and the hippie groups and shit like that. Oh, the different sort of like thinking, like kind of culty family groups. There was going to be somebody who's going to come and take advantage of that.
They're going to plug into that.
Someone's going to. That's just how humans work. And because we're adaptable, we really figure out how to fuck something up if we really can in the best way possible. And H.H. Holmes was built for it.
And Grim Sleeper, there's a great documentary on the Grim Sleeper. The crack epidemic and the Grim Sleeper correlate perfectly with one another. I mean, it was just a perfect storm for him as well.
Somebody takes advantage of it. It's like what Eddie was talking when Eddie from Roundtable talked about the story about how there was all the gang violence. We talked about it on the 9/11 episodes.
Up in Washington Heights. Yeah, when the day of 9/11 up in Washington Heights, a lot of people disappeared all at once because all the cops were all downtown.
And yes, so humans do bad things like that, but we also invented saltwater taffy. So I remember that.
Yeah, actually, I think saltwater taffy was invented at the World's Fair of 1894.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, or 1893, excuse me.
Wow.
But yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. Wow. That's a taffy fact, huh? This is a good podcast.
I love the new taffy fact segment, that's for sure.
Yeah, so after Holmes arrived in Chicago in 1888, 5 years before the World's Fair, he traveled out to Englewood, a fast-growing suburb of Chicago, and he quickly found a pharmacy across the street from a vacant lot on the corner of Wallace and 63rd. He talked to the elderly woman inside and found out that her husband was, at the moment, upstairs in their apartment dying of cancer.
And she should have been suspicious when his first reaction immediately was like, really? No, he's upstairs. He's dying of cancer right now.
I'm very sad about it. I don't really love the...
I'm laughing with grief.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Good day, madam.
So when am I going to get my books? Okay.
So Holmes immediately sensed that he could take advantage of the situation. He offered his services as a pharmacist to help her in her time of need. Of course, admitting the fact that he had just accidentally, quote-unquote, accidentally killed someone doing the same job in Philadelphia.
But then he told her later on, and she literally was like, but at this point, he'd become so good at the job there where he was really good at the customer turnaround where he'd come in and he'd quickly give them their medicine. She was just like, he told him, he basically said, he was like, I accidentally killed somebody in Philadelphia, and she's just like, everybody's accidentally killed somebody. We're pharmacists.
Really? In the late 1800s? Yeah.
And to this day.
Yeah. No. Pharmacists do accidentally kill people.
All the time.
All the time. Just remember that. When you go to your local CVS, is that pharmacists literally kill people all the time.
All the time, because anybody can be a pharmacist. All right, you go in there. Let's say you could even go through school to be a pharmacist and be a killer like H.H. Holmes.
Yeah, remember, anybody can become anything, and any of those people can kill you at any time.
President of America as well.
So the old man died soon after Holmes started working there, and following his death, Holmes offered to buy the pharmacy from the old widow on a payment plan. Of course, she said, yes, of course, you're the best thing that possibly could have come along. And of course, Holmes never delivered on the payments. Each month, he'd have some excuse or another to explain away why he couldn't pay her, and eventually the old lady filed suit against him, and soon after she filed suit, she disappeared completely.
Oh, well, she went to go join the army.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what happened. They were recruiting elderly widows at that time.
For World War I.
Yeah.
The frontier wars the Indian wars were still raging on, and they needed plenty of old women.
Well, they would use old women as decoys. They would put them out into a field and go, help, any Native Americans can come. I'm desperately... And I'm just sick for corn. My corn addiction is really I am sick. I got the shivers. I've got the sweats. And then they'd be like, here you, sweet old woman, have corn to soothe your ailments. And then, la, 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 la. and then they kill all the fucking Native Americans.
Oh, that's how that
And
happened.
then the men with guns come out.
I'm not a scholar. I'm not a historian.
I think it's very possible.
Well, what H.H. Holmes told everybody is that she had gone to visit relatives in California because all the old customers were asking after her. And as time went on, when they were finally like, wow, she's really been in California for a long time, he said, oh, she loved it so much, she's just decided to stay there.
It's like she dug herself a hole, laid down into it, and covered herself in dirt there.
Seems like a strange analogy for the move to California.
It's like her ghost went there.
So less than a year after H.H. arrived in Chicago, Holmes decided it was time to take another wife, a one Miss Myrta Z. Belknap.
Beautiful names back in the 1890s.
Myrta, what do you think the Z stood for?
Zebulon.
So Myrta, she was from Minneapolis, and after a short courtship in which H.H. wrote letters about subjects ranging from romantic gestures made by the rich and famous to the intricacies of pig slaughtering, Myrta moved to Chicago and became his wife.
I think, and to this day, that is what all messages on OkCupid now consist of.
I agree with that.
Yes. Did you know that this man bought a hotel for his wife as an expression of his love? And also, when they boiled the bristles off of the pigs, oftentimes they are still alive and they're squealed.
Technically, we're 90% matched, and I'm just so sick of going out on dates, and being a single girl in the city has just become really overwhelming. I hate meeting people at bars, so I guess I'm gonna have to go with this mustachioed millionaire that from Missouri County. He calls it.
Welcome to my family. So this girl, Myrta, not once did it ever cross her mind that anything was wrong with her husband. She said,
He was a lover of pets and always had a dog or a cat, and usually a horse. And he would play with them by the hour, teaching them little tricks or romping with them.
and about his interactions with babies, she said,
Often when we were traveling, there happened to be like a baby in the car, and he would say, Go and see if they won't lend you that baby for a little while. And when I brought it to him, he would play with it, forgetting everything else until his mother called for it, or I could see that she obviously wanted it back.
Yeah. Well, this is the era before DVD stores and the Blockbuster videos, so you just had to go rent a baby
Also,
for
I
the
imagine
nights
it's
for
just
8
him
hours
just
of entertainment.
taking the baby and pulling on its arms.
Yeah,
and it's just
yeah,
like,
yeah.
it's miraculous how a baby's arms just hold to its body. And so, I tug, and I tug, and I tug, and they do not remove themselves.
Yeah, sort of a Stretch Armstrong type.
I must use science to see if I can separate the arms from this baby.
oh no, I think the mother wants it back.
No, I've brought my doctor's hammer.
So Myrta could not stand the attention that Holmes received from women because, as we said earlier, he was quite a ladies' man. And, of course, women would come to the pharmacy just to hang out with him, just to flirt with him.
And she would work with him there for a little bit and then couldn't handle it. And then he sent her upstairs to go live in the house above them and do the desk work. And then it got more and more tense between
What
them.
were the other guys in Chicago like? Like, how bad must they have been for H.H. Holmes to be the only hope for these poor single women?
But it's any guy with a top hat. Is back in the day. It wasn't just him. It was all of these these women were going to Chicago to meet a man just like him, an ambitious man on the rise with a fucking suit coat on, and a fucking top hat. And there was a bunch of these guys. Some of them just couldn't like. Most of them couldn't fuck. Most of them, their dicks just didn't work, and they were horrible drunks. He was just more of a supervillain.
Mm-hmm. And so of course, she was sent upstairs away from Holmes because he wasn't necessarily angry with her. He just started to see her as a nuisance because that's how psychopaths really see people. It's like nothing more than a nuisance, something to just get rid of. And she, within a year of marriage, got pregnant, and she just got shuttled off to live with her parents before she gave birth, and there she would stay. And Myrta, she would be one of only two. She would be one of only two of Holmes's romantic conquests in Chicago to survive their relationship. And it's possible that he did have some feeling for her at some point, or it's possible that he just couldn't be bothered to get rid of her, or it's possible that he just didn't have the opportunity to get rid of her.
No, it seems like as you see throughout the rest of his story, he keeps going back and checking in on Murder and his kid. The whole time. And like
Lucy was her daughter's
Is he
name.
staring at a dead cat to come?
Honestly,
wasn't it ever a sexual thing though with these cadavers and these animals?
yes,
We'll
because
get into it,
he ejaculate. Well, you'll find out. Yeah, we got funner stories later down the line.
Yeah.
But he funner stories. I'm a disgusting person. I would say H.H.
We
Holmes.
have lots of cum, in other words.
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. Episode 2, there's plenty of cum. I know we had a lot of cum talk on the last couple episodes.
I
and
figured
know
y'all needed
you
a
guys
break.
loved it. So we decided, but you can't have all cum all the time. You got to keep them wanting more.
It can't just be dessert.
Right.
But he did have sexual proclivities, but I do think it's sort of like a Gary Ridgway, and there are people that have connections to people. It's like I had a listener send me a Facebook message talking about how his dad knew his dad was hit on Jeffrey Dahmer.
Yeah.
And then him and Jeffrey Dahmer would be at the bar all the time, and he saw him out all the time at the gay bars, and would go up to him, and he'd hit on him, being like, "You're a great dancer, should hang out." And Jeff Dahmer kept saying no. Kept being like, "Nah, man, no." And he's like, "Why?" He's like, "You're just not my type."
Yeah.
You know, so they have feelings in a way. They have like a thing
Well, of course. He also might not. When Dahmer said not his type, he's like, people will know when you go missing. Yeah. So you're really not my type.
So Holmes, shed of a wife completely, turned his attention across the street to the aforementioned vacant lot. He bought the land in the summer of 1888 and, thinking ahead, registered the deed under a fake name, H.S. Campbell. The site of his murder castle had finally been chosen.
Ooh, what a day.
It could not have been more perfect.
I mean, for a murder castle, you know what I mean? For a hotel, it could have been better. For like anything else, for any other business or something.
No, for a business, for a hotel, for everything.
He said he had been watching that corner for years.
It was perfect because, of course, the World's Fair was coming in just a few short years. Chicago was growing rapidly. They said there was an apartment rush at this time, that people were just rushing to get apartments wherever they could in Chicago. The train, the L train, was being built into Inglewood, and so people working in the city could travel in and out. This spot was perfect for everything that he wanted.
And then one last scam to sell the pharmacy before moving across the street. What he did was that he sold the pharmacy to a guy. Basically, he put the pharmacy out there, saying, "I'm selling this for some X amount of money." A guy from out of town came in to check it out, and H.H. Holmes had paid a bunch of people to show up and pretend to be customers there. Because what he was doing is he would get stuff on credit inside of the pharmacy, and then he'd sell all of it and then not pay people back and get it. So that's how he was making money. And so what he did was he faked it being a busy pharmacy, sold this guy at this crazy price, but he didn't really read the contract. He left to go get his family and come back to the pharmacy. When he came back, H.H. Holmes had removed all of the fixtures inside of it, anything that was fancy, and then the guy moved in there, was like, okay, we're going to start this business, and then looked across the street to see the castle spring up, and then literally a sheet come off of a new pharmacy that H.H. Holmes had opened across the street from his that had all of his fixtures inside of it, and it was like twice the size and super fancy.
Location. He got the perfect one, and it seems like he's going to have a very successful business on his hands.
Well,
Successful.
How do you measure success? I
mean, technically, it's like, you know how they say that Stalin was a great man?
Yeah.
It's kind of like that.
From Hardcore History, that's what he talks about Genghis Khan. I hate when he says Genghis Khan. I know that's how you're supposed to say it, but
Genghis?
It's Genghis.
It's
technically Genghis.
You're supposed to say Genghis.
In Hardcore History, he hits the Genghis real hard by being like Genghis. So you know that it's supposed to be Genghis.
And then Genghis Khan was the greatest man that ever lived.
But that's what he said. By greatest, it just means he just had a big impact on history. But most greatest men of history were actually fucking horrible.
Yeah, exactly. Like
So
H.H. Holmes, like I was telling y'all, in the hotel in Washington, D.C., could have been a Hitler.
But you know what? You didn't have the stones to put together those camps. I'm not saying it was brave.
I don't know.
Technically, he put together one camp.
Yeah, but it was
with
small.
gas
It was pretty
and
small.
It was
Yeah.
We had such a good time in Washington, D.C. You remember?
Oh my God! Thank you guys so much. We did DC Podfest this last Saturday, and it was unbelievably fun. And the fans who came out were so incredibly kind.
Everybody was great.
Yeah.
We had such a blast.
Yeah, and this will, this proved that, we can do some out-of-town shows. So here in the future, we're definitely going to be traveling out of New York City.
Book us.
Please book us. If you have a venue outside of New York City that you think can draw some people, that you think has a big contingency of Last Podcast on the Left fans, get a hold of us. We'll talk.
Absolutely. We really only asked for bus fare. Marcus and Ben asked for
no
bus
more,
fare.
no
and
more bus fare.
No more buses.
We are asking for at a minimum train fare. At a minimum.
No more buses?
No more I cannot.
You don't want any more buses?
You do.
Oh yeah. You weren't but remember, Ben, you weren't the one that had to deal with the man with the scars all over his face asking you to come in his mouth.
That was the best part of the
6:30 in
trip.
the morning.
Technically, that was
6:30 in the morning.
That was very friendly.
It made me feel very pretty. He was very friendly,
Exactly.
sweet, and when I turned him down, he politely thanked me for my time.
Good.
Yes. But it was, I wish your bus wasn't getting out so early. Thank you.
What did he say to you? I wish I had more time with you.
Yes, I wish I had more time. Because our bus was leaving in 30 minutes.
Long story short, we were at Port Authority where we departed to Washington, D.C. I was slightly late because there was a problem on the A train. Not exactly my fault. When Marcus was waiting, a man propositioned him because he is so attractive, and homeless people love Marcus's crooked teeth because they think they're normal teeth. And he was offered a blowjob. So I actually think it could have been a great time for you. You should have killed 15 minutes and gotten blown by the guy.
Oh, God, his sloppy blowjob where he's like, don't remind me of my wife. Scottish.
Oh, so gross. Yeah, dude, hail yourselves, and thanks for all the beef jerky from Randy again.
Oh, thank you so much, Randy.
Plowing through that.
I'm going to say it's the best batch he's made.
Yes,
God,
I'll say
so good.
100% it's the best batch he's made.
Loving it.
I treat them like children. I love all of them. I love all the batches the same.
Hail sweet Satan.
Yeah, and if you guys want a Last Podcast on the Left t-shirt, you can go to cavecomedyradio.com/merch, and while you're there, you can listen to all the other shows that me and Ben do together, Roundtable of Gentlemen, Abe Lincoln's Top Hat. You can hear some of the shows that I do with Henry's sister Jackie, Page 7, and Sex and Other Human Activities. And I bet we got a lot of new listeners on this episode. Every time we do a heavy hitter, we tend to gain a few new listeners that are looking for some more serial killer knowledge out there. So if you're a new listener, be sure go join the Facebook group. There's a lot of great discussions there. Go follow us on Twitter at LP on the Left. Ben is at Ben Kissel. Henry is at Henry Loves You. And in case you didn't see it on the Facebook page, to clear it all up, Henry 5'7".
I am 5'7".
I am 6 feet tall. Ben is 6'7".
Ben is very tall.
But there was something with the, and of course follow Marcus Parks on Twitter at Marcus Parks.
That's right.
There was something with the picture that we took outside of Washington, D.C. in front of the White House.
It was
I
an
don't
angle.
know why I looked so freakishly big.
But we are normal size. I'm normal size.
Yeah, I am of average height.
And DC people are like, oh, you're not a midget. I'm like, I'm a normal person.
Technically, I'm short for a center in the NBA.
Yeah, and everyone was telling me I thought you would be tinier. Much tinier.
I'm fucking as big as I gotta be.
It's
I
ridiculous.
love my height. I'm the perfect height for a drummer, a swimmer, and a climber.
Yes.
All three of those things I am okay at.
I haven't seen you swim once.
Except climbing, I am very good at.
Why? I have to take a shit.
That's great. And yeah, and if you are a new listener to the show, go back and archive all the other heavy hitters we've done. I think you'll love them. And then if you are like, it wasn't violent enough on this one, it gets very violent. I promise
gets
you,
extremely
you will hear.
violent, but this is how our heavy hitters go, man. We get you get your background information. You really got to paint a picture because with all these guys, context is extremely important.
I'm also going to just put it out there as a guarantee in the next couple of weeks, you're going to get your violence. We are looking for some pretty fucked up things, and I hope that you guguys enjoy being upset on your way to work.
Yep.
Because I'm going to enjoy being upset at work.
Yeah. I let it slide off my back because I don't feel feelings.
Yep. Oh, and people were talking about donations and stuff, and we're doing a Patreon thing soon.
It'll be very soon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'll be
Watch out for that.
Me go Celeste.
Hail yourselves.
Hail me.
Algene.
For more shows like the one you just listened to, go to cavecomedyradio.com.
There's no place to escape to.
This is the last podcast.
On the left. That's when the cannibalism started.
What was that?
He's dog meat.
But that's what I'm saying. You're dog meat, so you don't even need the video game. Your whole life's a video game.
I need it, man.
Is this being recorded?
I just don't understand how one video game is better than another if it doesn't, like, pay you money or, like, get you laid.
You can be a competitive video game, or you can go to the gamer conventions and get a lot of money for killing people, in fake worlds.
He's not, though.
All right, should we go on to part 2 of H.H. Holmes?
Let's do it.
All right. So
I play
today's-
Sudoku.
Oh my God! Whatever.
And welcome to the last podcast on the left.
I'm doing it. Welcome to the last podcast on the left. I'm Ben Kissel. That's Marcus Parks. This guy over here to my left, he's a little ill. He's a little sick. Oh. Come on. It's
Just go ahead and write my will, if you would.
What do I get?
Henry Stransky of sound mind and body, do bequeath my Batman hat to my corpse.
You can't will your corpse.
Casket, and I take the 2/8 of weed I bought the other day from a man and I met on the street, which is true. I'll bequeath those to my corpse in my casket, and my thousands of dollars I bequeath to my corpse.
You're gonna die like an Egyptian pharaoh.
Yes.
You're just gonna take all your shit.
Bury the items I have. The things that served me in life will serve me after the veil.
Thousands of dollars, 2/8 of weed, and your Batman hat.
Yeah, that's all I need
Okay.
when I'm in heaven.